Okay, great. So, hi everyone, my name's Francis, and for the next 2 hours, I'm going to take you through what is the Power User course for the PleaseReview application. The whole aim of today's session is to basically provide you with an overview of how you can set up within PleaseReview a review, and then once you have set that review up, what happens with the end users, how do they interact with that review. So there's a requirement within today's session that I split that into two defined elements. The first is I'm going to show you how a review is set up, and then once a review is set up, how do you actually then close it down? That will be the first part of the session, and then the second part of the session will be then how end users will actually review that document, so how they make comments and how they propose changes. The layout of today, we'll be talking about first off how people gain access to the review. Setting up the review is very simple. It's 5 easy steps. I'll take you through that at quite a bit of length, but really importantly, in the real world, when you're setting up a review, it's effectively a couple of clicks of your mouse and you set your review up and live. Once we've done that, I've already got a review that I've got a number of interactions with, a number of comments and proposed changes that are there, and I'll take you through the journey of how then you as the owner of the review, how you accept and how you close those, and how you provide feedback to your end users. As mentioned, the second section will be then how the end users will have been invited to that review, how they interact with that document that you've invited them to review. So importantly, for those that haven't experienced PleaseReview previously or have not heard of it, then what is PleaseReview? So PleaseReview is purely designed around the facilitation of review, co-authoring and the redaction of documents. And it's an application that basically you are going to control as review owners. You'll invite reviewers. What you invite them to will be uploaded by you, and the uploads can be Word, PowerPoint, Excel, PDF, even source code files. And those documents you'll present to your end users, and you can also configure within PleaseReview what you actually present as well. So if there's ever a requirement within a Word document that you don't want people to see a certain section, for instance, you can hide that section from either an individual or multiple individuals. And you can do the same thing, for instance, if you have a requirement where people just need to read a particular line of text or particular paragraphs or pages of text, and you can then really bring in their concentration to the areas of document that you want them specifically to review. Those participants will have received an invite from the PleaseReview system. You will populate a series of instructions as to what they need to do, and you'll also inform them as to when they need to do it by. That email that they'll light up in their inbox will contain a link that will take them directly into the PleaseReview system, and they will do then the things that you've then asked them to. At any point in time in the review, you can actually run through the document and actually, as the owner of it, actually accept or reject the comments or proposed changes that they've made. At the end of the review, you can pull out then anything that you have accepted as finalized text, and anything that is unaddressed will show as just a word track change. So that's a high-level overview of the PleaseReview system. And importantly, if you have no questions on what I've said so far, I will then take you into hopefully the more exciting side, which is the PleaseReview system itself. Now, within today's session, if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to ask me. I'd be delighted to answer them there and then. But let me swap over my screen, as I said, and take you into PleaseReview.
So it's Tom with a question. I don't know what others' experiences on the line. Has everyone used PleaseReview to some extent for putting reviews in from the Lexicon group?
I have just briefly. I've only done maybe 2 that I've entered. It's not been quite as extensive as what Christy was doing.
Yeah, I've put them in and taken them out, but not done a lot with like consolidating changes. So you're not going to hear a lot from me until we get to that area. I'm pretty familiar, personally with the stuff that happens on either end, I guess, just not,
the stuff in between. Yeah, same here.
Yep.
So that's where I'll start, really asking.
No problem at all.
Just to let you know.
Happy.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that's great. Please, obviously, if you've witnessed PleaseReview, I'm sure you'll be working otherwise and with a keen ear for what I'm saying. But
Yeah,
obviously,
it's the
point in
it's the
time, got it.
consolidation of comments part that will be great. Okay, thanks.
Fantastic. Thanks. Okay, so for a user journey, turn to PleaseReview, you put in your username and password, click in login, and that'll take you to what effectively is going to be your inbox in PleaseReview. So as a review owner, you will then see all the reviews, as I've mentioned, you control. You'll have on the left-hand side the date by which these reviews are due. You'll have a title, you'll have the status of the review, you'll have then against the word select, really handily, a little pop-up box will come up and it'll indicate, who's busy, who's yet to even enter that review, which is a great oversight. And if you were to click on the word enter, you'd be brought into the review itself. So the first part of the journey is to set up a review. So let me take you through that. So on the left-hand side, we have a new review tab. And if I click on that, I'm going to be taken to step 1 of the 5-step process. It's here that my system might slightly differ to yours. My system allows me to work across multiple work groups, so multiple different teams, and share reviews with them. For today, we're just going to work within the main work group, and we're going to entitle our review as such. The review that I title needs to be unique. If it isn't, PleaseReview will remind you that you do need to make it unique. So you get a little warning message popping up. Hopefully for me today, this will be a unique event. The next thing that I detail is, well, what do I want my users to do within the review? So the description box is basically my instruction box to them. It's a huge space. It's actually 64,000 characters long. So you have lots of availability for giving very detailed instructions. If your instructions need to be unique to a particular user, you can do that a little bit later on. But here I'm going to ask people to, in this case, complete in line with policy. The next thing that I have is the ability to request them to a particular type of review. So out of the box, you will have 2 types of review. You'll have a standard review and you will have what is called a multi-phase review. A standard review is basically a single cycle review, and that's what we'll look at today. A multi-phase review is a multiple cycle review. So if you have a requirement where a document or series of documents need to go to various teams, various departments, either as part of its life journey or part of its authorization process, a multi-phase review will probably suit you really well, because you can set up all of the teams, all of the departments, those documents need to visit, the order in which they need to visit, and you can set it up so that fairly much automatically, once one team and one review has finished with the document, it then passes on to the next team, next department. As mentioned, today we'll just carry out this standard review. You'll also notice on my screen that there are other named review types. Reviews types allow you not only to set up cycles, but they also allow you then to define behaviors that will be or not be available to your end user. So perhaps if, for instance, I've got some very sensitive documents with my system, I might want to switch off certain permissions. So with my legal review, for instance, I've stopped people downloading the documents out of the system. My legal review is very much time sensitive, so I've got my system jumping forward 5 days hence automatically. So there's lots of settings that can be configured within PleaseReview, and you can do so at review type. Today, standard review. The next thing I indicate is, well, what is the date and time that I want my review to be completed by? Usually frowned upon if I have that outside working hours, so I'll pop it in working hours, click in the date, and that's my step 1 of my process completed. Next will take me to where I'll upload my documents. How you do so is basically you click on the dialog box, and having done so, you'll be brought into your file explorer. You can individually select documents and then click on open, that'll bring it in. You can drag and drop files and folders. So if I pull in, in this case, my file, or I can pull in the whole folder. So very quickly, I can then populate my review with all of the documents that I want to review. Now, in reality, this is probably far more than you would ever look to have within a single review, but it's just to show you the functionality. The order in which the documents are listed are basically the order in which they're going to be presented to my end users. So if you ever have a requirement you want to change that order, that's nicely achieved by just dragging the document and reordering it as thus. Another thing that you can do with PleaseReview is that all of these documents currently are open for review. I want people to make comments and propose changes within them. If a particular document is, for instance, a document that I just want to give people read-only access to, what I can do is I can click on the type and select reference, and that will present them with a read-only version of that document. Once I'm happy with all my documents in the right order, in the right status, then I can click next, and next takes me to where I'll add my users. Adding users, I will utilize the distribution list heavily within PleaseReview. It allows me to pull in a predefined team of users with a click of my mouse. Once I've pulled in the team, I can also reorganize their levels. So you can see that I have them already configured with particular roles within my review. So if I have a requirement where a user needs to be promoted, be able to do more than he does currently, in this case, I can just drag and drop him into his relevant level. Once I'm happy that I've got all of my users, I just click add, and that'll add them to the review. If there was anyone missing, I can start typing the names of the individuals, and then once I've added the persons that I need, again, I can then just click add to the right-hand side. I can never duplicate people within PleaseReview, so if I'm a little careless, PleaseReview will pick up that I've already added Brian and will just ask me the question, did you really want to do this? This person already exists in my review. In this case, it also picks up that it's a different role that I've looked to add him again. The users within PleaseReview, let me open up the roles list and then talk you through what all these roles can do. To take you on the journey, I will pop in a user and we can drag him through these various roles to indicate what they do. So the first role that you see is a viewer, and it is literally that. It's a person who can view the documents. They're not going to add comments, they're not going to propose changes, they're just going to view. The next level up from that is a reviewer, person who makes comments and person who proposes changes. The next level up from that is this contributor role. And in order to detail what that contributor role can do, then I really need to sort of very simply give you some details as to how PleaseReview actually works. Now, PleaseReview works by re-rendering any document type that you upload into it into HTML format. Now, that gives you and your users the ability to make comments and propose changes against it. There are some formatting tools. There's bold, there's italic, there's underline, there's subscript, hard hyphen, non-breaking space. You've got cut, copy, paste. You've even got some fonts that are available to you. But by no means do you have the full suite that is available to you within a Word environment. And really importantly, PleaseReview isn't Word. But there are times within PleaseReview that you may want to think, well, actually, I need a table here in this particular section. I need to relocate an image to another. I want to increase or decrease the line spacing between text. I want to change the color of fonts, all of those things that you do so very easily within Word. So how do you do them within PleaseReview? Well, there is this option where you can give a user a permission so that they can take a section of the document out into Word to actually call upon that rich thing that they do within Word. So if you need a table, you can allocate the section to the individual who wants the table. They can go out into Word, add the table, and pop that section straight back into PleaseReview, and everybody can then work within it. There are some considerations that you need to apply to that functionality. It might not be functionality that you give out to your end users. It might be functionality you keep for yourselves. If you do give it out, you can give it out at two levels. The first is a contributor, where you define where they work. The second level is this super contributor. So this is where you give that individual free rein over the document. They can take out whatever they need to. They tend to want to take out the smallest sections possible, because whilst that section is out in Word, people cannot make comments or propose changes within PleaseReview against the section that's out. As soon as it's back in play. In the list, we then have the author as the final role, and the author role is basically a person who makes comments, proposes changes, and also can accept those comments and proposed changes either made by themselves or made by others. So once I've got all of the users that I want within my review, quick check to make sure they're the right roles, I can then, to the bottom right-hand corner, click Next. If I need to give special instructions to these users, it's actually here that I do so. In this instance, I'm going to select this particular user, Aidan, click on the Edit key, and I have my little special instructions dialog box, and it's here. As I said, I'll give my instructions, and the instructions will be released to Aidan in the email that will be sent out from PleaseReview, welcoming him to the review, giving him the global instructions that I populated for everybody alongside the special instruction as well. Selecting Update confirms it. Little top tip, if you're giving lots of instructions to lots of users, actually hover your mouse against the word yes, because you'll see the instructions that you've given. Now, I've called upon a distribution list. Importantly, if you ever have a requirement to create a distribution list or have a requirement to amend a distribution list, it's probably easiest done actually here and now. So at the bottom of my screen, there is this option to manage the distribution list. I can pull up my main list that I've used for these individuals. I can update an existing list. I can create a new one. And dependent on my permissions, I can either share that with others, or I can keep it as my own personal distribution list. My particular settings, I have that switched off, so I can't share it. But I can certainly create my own personal one. Again, once you're happy with setting that up, that's additions to the reviews configured, and I just click to the bottom right, Next, and that'll take me to what may first seem a little bit daunting. So here we see a screen with lots of text, lots of selections, and you might be fearful, if you've not seen PleaseReview before, to think that this is going to take you quite some time, because as you look a little bit deeper into the page, you'll also see that there are a number of tabs across the top of the screen with, again, lots more text, lots more tick boxes. So I'm going to go and cover these off. Now, for the vast majority of these settings, I think that they're fairly obvious as to what they do. There's one that isn't, that I'll detail, which is sub-review. You are seeing PleaseReview out of the box, so these are sort of the standard settings that are launched with PleaseReview. And for the vast majority of customers, they're fine. They will run with this, and the vast majority of reviews will be fine with. If you find yourself, though, as a user group that constantly has to change these, that would be a really good time to have a conversation with your system administrator, because these settings and defaults can be easily changed. And also importantly, they can be changed at the review type level. So if, for instance, you have sensitive documents, as an example, you might not want people to download those out of PleaseReview. You might want them just to be kept within PleaseReview. You will have probably other security features with your documents in your organization that stop people downloading them, distributing them. You might want to have that also when you're sharing them as well. So you could have that setting completely switched off and even unavailable. The one that I think I need to detail a little bit more, being this sub-review. Sub-reviews allow you, or any user within the review, to actually create a review inside my review that I'm setting up. So for instance, I've invited Erin to my review. Say for instance, Erin is a team lead, and Erin as a team lead needs help within the review. What she can do, if sub-reviews have been switched on, is she can invite her colleagues into the review, and the review that she invites them to is a review that Erin actually controls. So as they make comments and as they propose changes, the ones that she agrees with, she can release up to the top level, which is the main review. Everyone within the main review will see Erin's comments and proposed changes coming from her one single voice, even though they've truly been made by the colleagues that she's invited to the review. Really powerful option, often overlooked, but hopefully may be of use to you. For all of the other settings, as I mentioned before, I think they're fairly obvious as to what they do. If you do have any questions, shout out. If you want me to detail sub-reviews further, if I wasn't clear with that, again, please let me know. The subsequent tabs to cover are email options. And email options are really just the emails that PleaseReview are going to send out. So it'll be first off the invites that go out to your users saying, please join the review, here's your link, here's your instructions. It'll be the emails that come back to you to say your review has been completed by all of your users. It's the emails that come back to you to say that the due date of the review has been completed. What do you want to do with the review? Do you want to end the review, or do you want to extend the review, or do you want to leave as is? If you leave as is, it shows just as overdue. You end the review, that obviously does that. If you extend it, notifications will go out to your end users to say, look, the new date of this review is this. All of the others are notifications, and at the bottom we have our chase emails. So these are the emails that are going out to the end users to sort of get them to jolly themselves along to, hurry up and complete the review. You can send them up as days, or you can even send them out at hourly periods as such. As long as you don't have any questions on that, I'm going to the next tab, and the next tab is subteams. Subteams are another way of controlling your users. Subteams allow you, for instance, so if we start typing some of the names of the persons that are within the review, there's this. So for instance, we have Adele and Brian in a subteam. Effectively, what that will mean is Adele and Brian will only have sight of what Adele and Brian do within the review. They will not have sight of what the main review gets up to. So all of the people beneath will have sight of their work. However, they will not have sight of the main team. For today's session, we'll just keep it as one big open happy family. Everyone will see everything, and we'll carry on to the final tab, which are review metrics. Now, review metrics within PleaseReview is basically a business configurable area. And the settings that I have was for a particular customer, and they had a requirement where they wanted to record a project code, project stage, and have a senior management team sort of sign off. Now, what's available to you within metrics is 3 business configurable areas. They are a string, an integer, and a selection box. I have 2 selection boxes on my screen, so you can order these field types in whatever order that you want. You can populate them with their titles as you see fit, and you can also give the sort of, as you can see here, tooltips that are required for them to be filled in. Do they impact the review in any way? They basically don't, unless you turn them on to be mandatory. If you turn them on to be mandatory, then there is the review itself cannot be closed until they're completed. But where do they show? They show basically within the reconciliation report. So anything that you have as a sort of a requirement to report on, that's where you can do it, and this is how you can do it. Again, as long as you don't have any questions on that, I'm going to click next, and next takes me to step 5 of the process. Step 5 of the process is just my check all stage. Did I set my review up correctly? Are my instructions clear? I've just spotted I've got a spelling mistake, for instance, so if I need to journey in and quickly correct that, I can then just journey in, put in the M rather than N, click OK, and that'll take me straight back out to my step 5. So it's a real quick journey for me as a user. I can check I've invited the right people, right roles, and I've got the right documents in, and as long as everything's okay, I can set my review to be live. Now, whilst I'm here though, what I can also do is I can further change what people can do within my review. So if, for instance, you ever had a requirement against a particular document that people needed to see certain sections, not see certain sections, things like that, you can do that here and now. And in fact, you can do it at any point in time within the review. You can do that also with users. So if you ever have to remove a user or add a user, even though review has started, you can do those things as well. And even if they've done some work. But I'm talking about zones, so I'm going to cover that off. As I opened up this document, the environment that I'm brought into is basically my PleaseReview environment. But at the top of it, you can see this multi-line icon, and if I select that, it switches on what is called my zone creation mode, and it references this default zone to the right. Now within PleaseReview, the default zone for all these users, or the vast majority, will be that they are reviewers. So if I open it up to show you, we can see that, as mentioned, pretty much everyone is a reviewer. So by default, that's what they will have access to, the whole document as reviewers. Now, if I want to change what they do at a particular part of the document, what I need to do is just select the part of the document that I need that difference to occur within. So here I've got a paragraph that I've clicked on. The smallest area is actually a paragraph within PleaseReview that you can affect someone's view. And here I have then against the H column, I can hide the section. The V stands for view. So if I want people just to read only, I can do just that. So the R stands for reviewer, the A stands for author, and the W is the edit in Word function. So that was the contributor role that I spoke of earlier. So as you can see, if I want to hide a particular section from Aidan, I can do just that, switch that on, click apply, and that'll do just that. So top right hand corner, I'm now going to exit out of the review. I've done everything that I needed to, and the exit option takes me out and takes me through to my control panel. And if I scroll to the bottom, in this instance, I'm going to start my review off. So the next part of this process, having seen the setup of a review, is to actually show you how that review now is closed down and how I work through my comments and proposed changes that are within the review and address them. So what I'm going to do is go back to my reviews, and earlier on today I set up this particular review with a number of interactions. You can see that the review is currently shown as overdue. If you ever need to extend the due date, all you need to do is click on the word select, and then having clicked on that word select, you've got at the top of the screen this ability to extend the deadline. You can click on the mouse, it'll give you a calendar that you've seen previously. You pop in the new expiry date and set that, and that extends it for you. So the part of the process that I want to show you is basically reviewing the document. And if I scroll to the bottom, I have this ability to enter the review and also close out the review. Now, perhaps if that due date had now come up and I wanted to stop people, I would say, sneaking in and adding, last minute comments and proposed changes, then if I journey to the review closeout, there is this handy option that allows me to close the review so that people can't go in and enter and make further comments. As it is now, I've extended it. I probably wouldn't want to do that. That would be quite rude. They've just received a notification that I've extended it. So what I can do is I can just journey into the review with them being active as well. So as I enter, I have a number of tools by which I can then move through the document and accept and reject the comments and proposed changes. The first series of tools that I'm going to show you is at the top of the screen, and I have a tick and I have a cross. Now the tick within my system, if I click to the right of it, the little drop down, I can see its current setting, and that is that it will accept with reason and move to the next. And if I go to the next one across, it will close with reason and move to the next. And the way that I can use this is that if I select either tick or cross, it will do just that. It'll go to the next one. If I click on it again, in this instance, it will accept without reason and just move to the next and highlight the next. If I want to close that, I can then click on close and it'll do just that with, in this case, reason. So you can change these settings and you can also use them with a filter. And I will often use these with a filter because you then will probably notice at the bottom of the list, we have a close everything and an accept everything. Now I tend to use that with my filter. If I go to my custom filter, and I'll use it, for instance, with things like typos. So on mass, I can then accept everything with a typo. I don't need to, go to it. I just can accept en masse. Sometimes I will want to sort of be a little bit more careful with that, and I will utilize then the filter against a particular individual. There might be certain individuals that I trust more than others that I can accept en masse, but that option can be, really handy for me. If I want to just consider everything, then what I can sometimes do is just scroll through the document and actually visit each and every one of them. Again, what I will try and do is I'll cherry pick them. So I'll utilize the filter and I'll say, right, everything with typo, I'll look through and I'll individually consider. Now, importantly, if I apply that filter, I don't really want to be scrolling up and down in order to find which typos I've picked up. So what I'll utilize is the navigator on the left-hand side, select the drop-down, select then comments, and here then I've got my comment with my typo, and I've actually already addressed it. So once I've done that, I'll then perhaps move on to a different comment category. I'll then select all the things that are minor, for instance, and I'll take that as a journey. So we've covered off then the ticks and the crosses. We've covered off the navigation presented on the left-hand side. And then the next option to cover off is that on every comment or every proposed change, we have a little drop down. Top right-hand corner will give us access to it, and we will have accept with reason, close, and close with reason. Now at this point in time, I'm going to cover off the close with reason options. And if I select that, what you'll notice is at the top, I'll then have a list that's available to me. Now, importantly, the list is business configurable. So the terms that you see, you might want to change in your organization, but it allows me then to sort of not have something quite negative like rejected. I could just, not be accepting something because it just needs to be noted. So I can click on that and click apply, and all of these categorizations that I apply can be reported on. So available from PleaseReview is a reconciliation report in effectively 3 versions. You've got a very simplified HTML version that's available actually in the review. So if I click to the blue arrow, it's this view report. This is as I referenced, my HTML version. It's a simplified report. It gives me on the left all of the comments, it gives me on the left all of the original text, in the middle any proposed changes and what those proposed changes are, and it also gives me then on the far right the author's comment. So in this one it's noted, for instance. I can filter it, so top of it gives me my filters, and these filters of everything that we've seen already within the system, so status, type, category, participant. So I'll have that. But when as an owner of the review, I'm reviewing the document, what I will tend to go to is the reconciliation version that's actually in Excel, and it's not available from within this screen. It's available from my control panel. I'll use that because I can really then interrogate it, obviously with Excel, because it'll pull through all of the categorizations that I've applied, all of the user details, all of the things that go on within the review can be filtered in that format. So we've covered off the drop-down option. What we didn't cover off when we were talking about this particular comment is that actually, if you were to accept a comment within PleaseReview, what basically PleaseReview will do is it'll treat it as something that you need to further address. And in that reason, it will show it as a word track change in the standard PleaseReview output. If it is that it doesn't need to be, addressed, nothing needs to happen, then you would just close that, just as I have done here. Other tools in regards to running through the document and picking off the comments and proposed changes, you have an open filter. So this will list all of the comments and proposed changes that are currently open. That's really handy. Just journey to the left, select your comment, we've navigated to it, and then you can just accept which one you want. If I scroll down a little bit further, we have a section that has 2 proposed changes against each of the paragraphs, and you can see they've got a little exclamation mark. Now, the exclamation mark just indicates that there is text that effectively can't coexist in what will be the final document. I always reference it as a conflict, but effectively it's just the text can't coexist. You'll see an exclamation mark, you'll see them turn dusty pink. A really important factor is that if either of these had a different category, so for instance, if I very quickly just journey into this particular proposed change because I've made it, I've got an edit option, it'll open it back up. I'm going to switch over the category to be something else, and I've got both of them then with different categories. So I've got Connor's minor, I've got mine as cosmetic. And the reason I've changed over the categorization is just to show you something, that if I switch on my custom filter and filter for categorizations for cosmetic, for instance, and click apply, you will note that this particular proposed change, where it was originally showing as being in conflict, no longer shows as that. Importantly, PleaseReview does know that there is another person's viewpoint that needs to be considered against this, because if I just click to accept, I'll get this little warning message that pops up to say, look, there is this other point of view, and do you want to have a look at them? And to look at them, you select the Merge tool. That Merge tool will bring in this case, both of the proposed changes, and it'll say, look, if you accept the latest, the most recent proposed change against that particular section, then at the top, that's what you're going to end up with in your final document. Now, I could look at that and I could think, well, thanks very much, but I actually disagree with you. I think that actually Connor was right with his proposed change. My text at the top changes. Looking at it further, I think, well, actually, it's still wrong. I don't like this sort of bracketed section. And what I can do is I can propose that it's changed and I can amend it further. As regards to that proposed change, if there's a requirement where I want my colleagues to be able to view my proposed change and be able to interact with it, if I click apply, what will then happen? Let's just bring that back into play. Let's come back. What will happen is that my colleagues will be shown that this particular proposed change will have been created by merging other changes together. If they want to interrogate what went on with it, all they need to do is click on the little drop down, click on paragraph history, and it'll open up and it'll show them the full record of what went on. We can see the proposed changes, and we can see what I've then suggested for my colleagues as well. So my scenario to you today is basically to provide a clean output within the review. And in order to do so, I'm very quickly going to just complete and accept these other changes. And then once I've done that, I'm going to just check that I've addressed everything. And the way that I'm going to do that is I'm just going to have my filter on open. Just look to the left-hand side. I can see that I've missed one, so I'm going to click on that, quickly address that. And now I know that I've addressed everything within this review. There are no comments to show on the left-hand side, and I'm happy that everything's done, and I'm going to exit out of the review. On exiting out of the review, I'm then going to be brought back into my control panel. So it's here that I might journey to the bottom again, select my review closeout process, and this time I'm actually going to close the review down. I don't want people sneaking in and adding more comments and proposed changes. I'm going to select it, click OK, and then once I've done that, I actually want to thank my colleagues. And the way I can do that is by sending them this reconciliation email. Really handy, because what it'll do is not only say thank you, but it'll also say, look, this is the impact of the work that you've done. And it'll give them an easy access to their reconciliation report so they can see the feedback that I've given them against those comments and proposed changes. The next thing on doing that, I need to complete the review. Now, this is a really important part of the process, because this releases, if my licenses are not being used elsewhere, basically those licenses back into my license pot. And then once I've done that, I'm now free to download my documents. Now, this review is full of documents, as you can see. I think there's about 20 of them. Nicely, at the bottom left-hand corner, there's this option to download everything. So I could click on that. But in this instance, I'm just going to take you through the one document that we've been looking at as review. Now, if I click on the download for that document, the document that I will present to you is basically a clean document. Ignore the one that you see in the background. Now, being a clean document, it basically incorporates all of the comments and proposed changes that I've accepted, and it'll show them as finalized text. If I had left any unaddressed, or if I'd left any comment as accepted, it will show that as if it had been made within word track changes, so that will be shown. So if you have a requirement, for instance, where you do sort of multiple reviews and you want for the next review cycle to see just the things that have been left unaddressed, that's how you can do it. As mentioned, this is my clean document. It has no trace within it of its journey through the PleaseReview system. It truly shows, just as you see it here, as a clean, incorporating all the changes. So that's my spelling corrections. I got rid of the logo that was once there. All of the interactions that I've accepted and against other comes through. There will be times, though, that you will want to have a copy of this document with basically word track changes. You want to see what that would have looked like if you'd have done it through the Word environment. So how do you get it? Top right hand corner, if you click on select comments, the default with PleaseReview is shown. So anything that's accepted or open is currently being shown. And if I scroll down, the way it's shown, as I've already detailed, is that open will be as tracked, accepted will show as normal text. So really, I want to flip that on its head, and I want to have actually accepted as tracked, open as comments, and if I then journey up to the top, actually I want everything. I want to see all the things that were closed, all the things that were merged, the whole lot. If I now scroll to the bottom right-hand corner and click OK, and now select the download key, the download that will be presented me will be then as if it had been made in the Word environment. So it'll show word track changes, it will show the comments, it will show the red lines, all of the standard functionality. As I said, it's if you've done it in the Word environment. It'll take a few more seconds just to open up. There we go. It's obviously heard me. And as you can see, everything that I've mentioned is all there. All of those interactions are detailed. So within today's session, I know that I've covered quite a bit of that journey for the owner of the review, and there's a lot to take in with that. So importantly, what happens if you sort of forget part of the journey and want a quick refresher? Well, very simply, if you journey to the top right-hand corner of your screen and click on the question mark, you'll be taken to our help files. And if you journey to the left-hand side, and I would suggest select quick guides to start off with, the quick guides that you're presented with are as follows. So the first one is sort of a general reference guide as to use of PleaseReview. And then underneath that, we then have a more specific guide, how do you get into a review? And then once you're in, if you're a reviewer, how do you do the work that was requested? If I scroll down as an author, as an owner of the review, how do you set up a review? I've mentioned those roles, and you might think, goodness, I forget what, or I've forgotten what a particular role does. this user guide very quickly then hopefully indicates exactly what those roles can do. As you can see, it's quite nice and simple. If you want details of how the review is closed out, that is all confirmed down at the bottom of the screen, and even down to the document download. I've detailed the journey that you can take, taking out that document and also then changing it so that you've got word track changes as the output. That is all detailed here as well. If you're after more depth to the sort of process, then basically you've also got the main user manual, and that just details absolutely everything. I would suggest that you journey here, for instance, if you're interested in multi-phase reviews. So this is remembered where I was last, so if I come back into it, but at the top, if you select section 10, give that a click, we then have the details of multi-phase reviews. There's a couple of things that you need to consider when setting them up, so those are indicated there. But yeah, that's your manual. And then finally, really importantly, if you ever are stuck with PleaseReview and have an issue, you've also got the resources of our support desk that can be reached by an email. So for me, for the first part of this session, we've covered everything in regards to setting up a review. For those that were attending purely for this part, are there any questions that you have, any areas that you want me to revisit?
I think we are good. Answer.
Okay, great. So that's the first part of the process covered. That was the setting up and closing out of a review. So the second part is basically to cover the reviewer's process. So how do they interact with the document that we've set up for them? What are the things that are available? So for that, what I'm going to do is just come out of the account for me, and I'm going to drop into the account that I've set up earlier today as this user.
Quick question. So is
Go
this
ahead.
the same process as the reviewer training that we saw last week or the
It
week?
is, yeah.
Do we need to see this again?
No, Tom. I think this is a repetition of what was done last week. Francis, correct me if I'm wrong.
Completely a repeat of what was done last week. This is
Yeah.
just that review. There would be nothing new that you would gain from
All right. Well,
watching
feel
this again.
free to do it if others will, find it useful. But I'm going to tune out for this part if it's exactly the same.
Okay, no problem at all.
And Tom,
So
like in general, for the power user and everybody else, right? So I know you guys prepare and route and manage these reviews, right? Is there anything you saw here, that's you have questions on, or is there anything you did not see and you would like to know more? I'm asking everybody, like, is there, when you are managing
All right,
reviews?
if you can go back to your first couple slides where you show you have like I think a circle that shows all the training for today. Yeah. So if we can, let's see. So we did create multiple reviewers, simultaneous access. Where are we now on this?
so this is just really a cycle of the review
I
itself.
see. It's not the training. Okay.
It's not the training. It's just the cycle of the review.
Right.
The element that we're at the moment is just the reviewer side. So if you witnessed the previous training, then you'd have already covered this. This is just how your end users make comments, propose changes, interact with each other. And yeah, that element of it.
Okay. I mean, it's been helpful so far. It's just that this, if it's going to really be the same, then I'm not sure what the value is. Since I think everyone here was on that, right, Gotham?
Sorry, Tom, can you repeat your question?
I can't see who's on the call today, but I'm assuming that everyone here did this last week, right?
No, we have a couple people
Oh,
who.
of course. Then of
Who did
course
not.
go ahead and go through it again. I thought it was the same exact group, but please just keep going.
Okay, no problem. Thanks for that. So as I mentioned, I'll take you the persons that haven't witnessed this before. I'll take you through that journey. So basically, as mentioned, when people are invited to a review, you're going to receive an email from PleaseReview. Gives you instructions as to what you do, gives you the date by which you need to do it, also gives you a list of the other people that have been invited, so you have sight of your colleagues, and can provide you with a link that will take you directly into the review itself. So just click of the mouse. If you were to enter the review system with just putting in your username and password, this is what you will then encounter. You will encounter basically a list of the reviews that you've been invited to as such. You can organize this list, so you can filter it via the statuses at the top. You can also organize it on any of the blue-headed columns. Basically, yeah, that's what you can do. For this review, I'm going to go into this particular review that we set up, and I'm going to select Enter. Also, just before I do that, for those reviewers, PleaseReview is very transparent. So if I hover my mouse over the word select, I can see who else has been invited as well. It's here, and I can also see if they've been busy as well. So as soon as they enter, the status will go from not started to being in progress. So entering PleaseReview's point and click environment, and that basically means that if you see a section that you meant to make a comment against or make a proposed change against, you just click on it. So here, for instance, I can select some text. I might then have an amendment to make. Put it in. And then once I've made my amendment, I have then a list of comment categories, reasons why I've proposed that change. Now I can select these. I might want to build further exactly why I've proposed the change. Perhaps that categorization isn't enough for me, so I can detail, more information as to why. And then once I'm happy, then I click apply, and my proposed change pops up to the right-hand side, just as you see here. Now, importantly, if anyone else is logged into the PleaseReview system, within a couple of seconds of me proposing that change, that will pop up onto their screen as well. And straight away, they can see that I've made that amendment. I can see the date and time. I can see the categorization, and I've also got some context around the change as well. In my system, what I want to do, having made that change, is actually looking at it. I think, oh goodness, I actually want to revisit that section because I need to elaborate more on what I wanted to do there. Now, what I perhaps wouldn't do is actually just reselect the text, because if I do reselect the text, all that will be presented to me is the original text. And if I put in yet another proposed change, all I'll have is just yet more proposed changes. And perhaps better would be not to do that, and perhaps would be better just to revisit my original proposal, and within that amend it as such, and then click apply. So we have that. The next interaction to cover off, actually before I cover that off, if you notice the little hash in the top right-hand corner, the hash 15, that indicates that this was the 15th comment or proposed change that has been made. For those that were very keen in their eyesight as to, well, wait a minute, this document didn't have any, there are word track changes within the original upload, and it's those that actually records. So that's why this is suddenly jumped to 15. So if I go to my next paragraph, next thing to show you within PleaseReview and bring your attention to is this time I'm going to bring your attention to the top right-hand corner. There's 3 lines. Now those 3 lines give me access to my formatting tools, ability to see paragraph history, and ability to attach files. Formatting is very nice and easy. I've got my fonts, bold, italic, underline. I've got subscript, superscript, hard hyphen, non-breaking space, cut, copy, and paste are all there. And if I'm looking for bullet points, probably the most commonly used special character, it's right in the top middle. If you're looking for anything more within PleaseReview, then basically it just doesn't exist. And that's what we'll look at a little bit later, is this ability to call out to Word to make amendments for things that aren't available within PleaseReview. That is if we've been given that permission. So here and now, I would just want to make all the rest of the text bold, because that's just nice and easy. Just drag your mouse over it, categorize, click on B for bold, click on apply. Just as before, PleaseReview records all of those interactions, pops in the bullet point, pops in the text to be bold. Next interaction to show you is the logo, and this logo I want to propose that it's actually deleted. So I just clicked on it. As you can see, it comes up with this little funny icon. I can then select that to delete it and propose that that be changed. And I'm going to ask my colleagues to see attached and replace. Now this can be really useful, not only for literally providing collateral for your review, but also for providing additional resource documents to sort of bolster your comments or your proposed changes within the document. Attachment of file is the third option down, and basically this will give you access to your file explorer. You select the relevant file and that will bring it into the PleaseReview system. Really nicely, it actually uploads it into PleaseReview. So not only is it available to everybody, but if you taken that document from your desktop and moved it, the fact that it's loaded into PleaseReview means that you moving it won't have broken that connection, because the connection isn't there. It's actually already in PleaseReview. Anyway, so I'm going to show you some other functionality here. So the next bit of functionality to talk about is the @mention functionality, and basically that gives me the ability to call out to my colleagues within the review. The trigger for it is typing in the @ sign, and as soon as you've got the name of the individual, you can just click on them, and as you can see, I can very quickly populate my review with an awful lot of people that I'm going to effectively shout out to. The people that I list have to be in my review. If I click apply, that will register my proposed change. It will provide everyone with the image. In this case, I think that's my risk matrix, and it'll then send out an email, in fact, to all of these users. So Erin, Adele, and Aidan will all, and even Francis, will get an email from PleaseReview. Now that email contains a link to the review itself. It contains a link that will take those users specifically to this proposed change, and it'll also be populated with the text that I've typed. So really handy way of calling out to people and getting them back into the review. Now, it's certainly a journey that I wouldn't take if I'm actually in PleaseReview. I wouldn't certainly advocate to leave the review to look at my inbox because if you're like me, you'll easily get distracted and wander off. Importantly, if I'm actually in the review at the time and someone's mentioned me, what I will sometimes do during the review is I'll just look at the left-hand side of my screen and select mentions. And this is where I specifically have been mentioned. I tend to look at this when I'm exiting out, or I tend to look at it if it's a really busy review and I can see lots of my colleagues sort of interacting. I can then just quickly look at that and I can see where they're shouting out to me. It just depends on your review and the sort of cadence of that review. A couple of things you'll notice. Well, one of the things where I've been making the comment, the text is this rather negative red. Unfortunately, you can't change the text, the color that's allocated to you. There are 10 colors and they're randomly associated to you. You can see the colors that are associated to individuals when you use the @mention, so that you can see the colors that Aaron's got this rather, I think it's green, but yeah, it's certainly a nicer color than mine. So there's proposed changes. There's the ability to call out to others. Other things, how do I highlight text? I want to highlight it. Well, same functionality. All you need to do is select the text by clicking on it, and then having done so within your inline editor, just drag your mouse across it, and then that action will highlight it. It's quite a nice one to sort of use with the @mention functionality. If I've just highlighted something, I might want to, ask someone a question, of that text. And having then asked that, click apply, and just as before, that'll pop up. If it is just I want to sort of highlight it, might not give an in-depth reason as to why, I can click apply. If I want to use the comment categorization, perhaps I'm highlighting text and I'm utilizing that comment categorization just to sort of say, look, this is, these are typos here, or this is, cosmetically wrong. I can do just that. If I just put a little full stop in, don't need to give a reason, and apply, it registers just that. So you can do things like that in PleaseReview as well. The highlighting option I find really useful because, as you can see, as I move across the screen, the sections to which these proposed changes or comments correspond is then highlighted as well. You'll notice when you use PleaseReview that comments and proposed changes start to sort of move up and down the screen. If you ever need to line them up again, just click on either the paragraph or the comment, and everything that's associated with it comes in line, as you can see here and now. Scrolling down a little bit further, the next thing I want to sort of cover off is what happens when users sort of interact with text that is already within the review. So for this, I'm just going to quickly put in some details and apply. And I'm going to very quickly review this from another person's perspective. Just come out of the review. This is that one, okay. And I'm going to go in from another person's perspective. So going into this review, as another individual, I can see then text that just pops up, and against that text, I actually disagree with it. So what can I do when I disagree with it? Well, I can propose what I suggest with it. So I can just select the original text and I can say, whatever I need to against that. And then once I'm happy with my proposed change, I can click apply. And what PleaseReview will do is it'll pick up that neither of these effectively could coexist, and it just highlights that to be the case. You get the little exclamation mark, and you also get then the little turning dusty pink. A couple of little other things that I could have done. If I disagree with something, I could have given it the thumbs down. So you'd have noticed a little thumbs up and a thumbs down in the bottom left-hand corner. System's not clever enough. You can actually vote negatively for yourselves. So those can be recorded. But effectively, all the voting tool does is just gives me a list of the people who have voted positively or negatively against a little proposed change. Importantly, the owner of the review isn't swayed by these thumbs up, thumbs down. They're quite free and able to take whichever route they so wish. So that's how you can interact with others. Obviously, you've also got the reply option. You might want to look at something and sort of say, well, I don't agree with that. If you want that to be sent to the individual, you need to use the @mentions. If you just want it as text against it, so commentary against a particular proposed change, you would just leave as is. And multiple individuals can do that. A little bit of poetic license because I've just replied again, but as you can see, you can build up quite a level of commentary against these. Other tools that are available to use within PleaseReview, so I suppose if I scroll up, one big issue that you're starting to see come up is that between these two pages, the sort of screen sort of elongates, and because you've used up so much real estate on the right-hand side, that gap's only going to get bigger. So a number of ways of controlling it. You can condense your comments or proposed changes. You're not going to make your colleagues unwell from their screen adjusting itself as you make those changes. It's just your view that you're changing. What I tend to do is not use that so often, other than for the really large proposed changes, sort of the text boxes there. What I'll utilize is the filtering options. So against the funnel icon, if you click on the drop down, you have this custom filter. And what I'll do is I'll filter out, for instance, the categories that I'm just not interested in. The other filter options that I have are against status, they're against type of comment, they're against comment category, they're against persons, and against point in time. So again, as I use PleaseReview, a lot of the times I've already mentioned, cosmetic, typo, minor, not interested, would be interested in others. A lot of the time I'm not interested sometimes in just the commentary, I'm actually interested in the proposed changes, and I'll deselect those. Other times I'm not interested in my colleagues' works, or I am particularly interested in my colleagues' work, and I'll filter via that. And then the last filter I find super useful, especially when you're going back into a review. It's been a while. I know that I've got a review live this weekend. I know that some of my colleagues will work over the weekend. And then when I'm in on Monday morning, I want to see effectively what I've missed, what have they done over that weekend. And this allows me to do just that, see what's fresh. So whenever you apply that filter, the items that are filtered straight away, obviously everything else drops off. How do you see the things that you're missing? Then easily to navigate, left-hand side, you filter on comments. Now, if I'd been a little cleverer, there would have been some to show. If I switch off my filter, you can see all of those coming in on that left-hand side. As we talk about the filters within this review, I'll cover off the other navigation aids. The first one is content. So this is it would show a true table of contents if one existed in the document. In my document, I just have headings, so it's just the headings that are shown. Against the comments, these are all the comments in my review, but we've seen the impact of the filter. If I scroll down, mentions, these are where I specifically have been mentioned, and then the last one are zones that have been set up within the review. Now, within this particular review, I forgot to set up a zone. So what I'm going to do is unfortunately have to journey quickly out of it and set up the zone. Now, importantly, this highlights that this configuration can be done at any point in time. So for instance, if I was a reviewer and I asked my owner to say, look, I need a table in this particular section, and the owner of the review sort of said, well, yep, that's fine. I'll give you access to it. The particular section that you've asked, what that owner can do is do just this. They can just drop into the review. They can select a little tab to the top, and they can then switch on this option so that I can then have access to that section in Word. They can apply, and that straight away gives me that level of access. So if I come out of the owner and very quickly drop in back in as the user, go in as Aidan, go back to this review, I now have that little section open up to me. Now, how do I know that it's that particular section? Well, there's two ways. Well, straight away I can see it. I can see it to the right-hand side. If it was, a little bit further down in my document, or, I wanted an easy journey, all I need to do is just journey to the left of my screen, click on zones, and my zone is available from that click. Selecting it highlights it, gives me that download option. So let me take you through this process. So if I click on the download, that does exactly that. That downloads this little snippet from PleaseReview. Now, as soon as I've clicked that download, that little snippet will be withdrawn from being able to be reviewed by my colleagues, and they'll see it because it'll turn grey. If they were there and looking at that zone, they'd also see a little message that pops up if they try to interact with it to say, look, sorry, it's out of play until it comes back in. Now, the little snippet that I've taken out, and I tend to take just a smaller enough because obviously I've got an impact on the review. I don't want it grinding to a halt because of me taking this out. There are some considerations that you need to be aware of when you use this functionality, and I'll highlight what those are now. I'm going to select Enable Editing. That will just finalize the Microsoft Word check to make sure it's not a nasty document. It's going to do my system harm. But once it's thought about it and considered it, rejected it for not being okay, we'll then open it up and the changes that we need to. So still thinking about it. There it goes. Nearly there. Now this length of time that it's taking has got nothing to do whatsoever with PleaseReview. And unfortunately, it's got something to do with another product that I have access to, and that's for some reason or other slowing it all down. But as I said, it's got nothing at all to do with PleaseReview. So there's my little snippet of document. What I'm going to do is very quickly, well, so it's nice and visual, I'll just pop in a logo, nothing more to bring your attention than a nice logo in it, and then we'll make some changes to the text. Okay, right, so that's in. What text shall I change? After which, so I made quite a considerable bit of textual change to the first part. The next section that I'm going to change is I'm going to switch on word track changes. And to do so, I'm going to select review, track changes, and we're going to put in just that. Now there's two ways of sending this little snippet back to PleaseReview. The first is basically to select file, select save as, it'll present you with a file location, and you then journey off and save it where you want to. That's one route. Another route is that you can, free of charge, and obviously with your IT permissions, utilize this little plugin. The plugin basically knows exactly where this little snippet needs to go. Clicking upload, it will send it then back. It'll give me some options as to how I send it back, and I won't need to save it on my desktop or anywhere else. It'll just go straight back into PleaseReview. The options are basically save options, and once I'm happy with that, I click OK, and I'm then presented with this little warning message. And basically what that warning message is picked up on is that there are going to be track changes within this snippet. And it basically says, look, these are not going to be handled as if they were originally created within PleaseReview, and it'll ask me, do I wish to continue? So it sounds quite ominous. If I click OK, it'll work its magic, send it straight back, ignore that document, that's something else, and it will then refresh my screen so that I can view that document. Now I've highlighted that people could have been impacted by this snippet being out of play. Important, their inboxes would now start to light up because they'll get an email saying, look, if you've been inconvenienced, this section's now back in the play. Here, I've got a little message for me to say that I can now refresh my screen, and if I do click there and refresh it, what pops in is that logo. Now, importantly, all of the sort of bump that I started typing, please don't read that too carefully because it's rubbish, but basically all of the stuff that I wrote into that hasn't been seen by PleaseReview. PleaseReview hasn't picked up that I've made those changes. What it has picked up is where I've used the word track changes, and it's then picked up that I've added more text to pick that up, but it hasn't categorized it, hasn't given me that functionality, nor can it, and it hasn't also given me the ability to say, look, this was actually me that made that change. It just says that the person denoted as imported comment has made it. The owner of the review can accept that text. The owner of the review can reject it. They can also they can interrogate PleaseReview further, so they could work out who's actually done it. But it takes a little bit of unpicking. It's much better, perhaps, for a lot of reviews to actually just do the amendments in the PleaseReview system rather than using that sort of word functionality as you see here. Just depends on the type of review you're carrying out. So there's my Word document and all of the interactions that are available to you. As long as you don't have any questions on that, and if you do, shout out. As long as you're okay with that, the next thing I'm going to quickly jump to is a PDF document and take you quickly through some of the differences that you see. Whenever you open a PDF, you will have 3 tabs that are available. You have View, Annotate, and Redact. View, zoom in, zoom out, single page rotation, multi-page rotation. Annotation gives you your sort of pictorial options, so you can point to a particular section. You can also propose that text is deleted, inserted, and replaced. And the final option, the redaction option, gives you those tools. So you can redact en masse, a particular area, for instance, and click apply. You can redact text by just using the sort of mouse redaction option and highlighter reduction. And you've also got a little peek tool. So although you can read what's underneath this here and now, if you click on that little peek tool, you will then see, you know, what that would look like as a sort of in the real world, effectively. So all of that is available. The annotation tools, if you want to use that, they work on the same option. So you select text. So if I highlight a piece of text, that proposes it, for instance, is up for deletion. If I want to change text, the funny little squiggle lines gives me the ability to select and then populate my inline editor that exists to the right, and I can then make the changes that I need. And then the last one is just insertion of text. Every other functionality that I've shown you within the Word environment also exists here. So the app mentions, the ability to add attachments, all of those good things all there. Everything I do within PleaseReview is recorded, and the record of everything is basically within the reconciliation report. Now that reconciliation report exists in the toolbar against the drop down, and it's the first option, View Report. What's presented is basically the following. You get a summary at the top, you get your review metrics, you get your participants. You can also see who was active and when were they last active. But as we scroll down, the layout is that on the left-hand side, we have the original text in the middle where they have a proposed change or a comment against it. And then to the right, exactly what that proposed change has been. And then to the very far right column, we have then any feedback the owner has given in regards to why they've accepted something, why they've not accepted it. That's all detailed there. Now, nicely, this report can be filtered. So the filtering are against select comments at the top. Those filters, now there's lots of documents in here, so we've got a first screen of lots of them. But underneath, we then have some filters on status, type of comment, category, participant, and point in time. All of those are there. So for instance, majority of times I'm really only interested in my sort of feedback. Quick click OK, and I can then see, well, what have I proposed and what's come back from it. There's also a really nice little function that allows you to use this as a navigation aid as well. So having filtered it, you wanted to go to a particular proposed change, you just click on the P and you'll note the screen changes because I've jumped from a different document back to my Word document and it's brought me directly to that. The reconciliation report for the PDF environment, let me just show you that, is ever so slightly different. Let's just go there. And if I go down to my PDF document, there it is. What I will be presented with is numerically the order in which the proposed changes have been made and then what those proposed changes were. Just looking at it, I've just realized that I've missed quite a nice bit of functionality that's available within the PDF environment, and that is that you've also got a find and redact option as well. So if I just jump quickly back to that PDF, where are you gone? I have in my toolbar a little find option, and if I select that, and then I've got to a different PDF, but details are the same. So for instance, if I'm looking for the word history, it brings up all occurrences of that word, and I'm then able to actually redact them by either individually selecting them, or I've got to select everything as well. Another nice little bit of functionality, as you can see, is where that particular term is used. All of the text around it is also brought in, so I can see how that word is used in context with others. So that's really handy as well. Okay, so we've covered then everything in regards to the word environment. We've covered everything that's in regards to the PDF environment. The next thing really to cover off is the little drop down. This drop down gives us access also to the original document and also this download with comments. Now the download with comments would show everything that is currently within the review as word track changes. So that's that option there. Next part of the process, as long as you're happy with everything that I've covered within this environment, couple of other little things, sort of top tips, I suppose. If you use PleaseReview on a laptop, so lots of people obviously working from home in these times, laptop use, sometimes if you've got a really small laptop, you might find that the comments and proposed changes are truncated in PleaseReview, so you sort of miss the right-hand corner. If you ever find that, top tip is actually just to switch off your navigator. If you click on the three-lined icon top left-hand corner, that'll, as you can see, just jogs the page ever so slightly to the left, and that pretty much resolves any issues that I've seen with people with using it with laptops. So this covers my journey. So I've finished it. So top right-hand corner, I can exit out of the review, and then having done so, I'm going to be brought into this status bar. Now this status bar doesn't stop me if I select completed from actually going back into the review. This is just that, it's just a status to my colleagues. Now within my system, I have the following two options actually switched on. I don't think you'll have those on your system because by default they're switched off now. But these allow me to indicate my capacity. So my capacity is just really, well, what business area was I within? And these are business configurable lists. And the opinion, again, is another business configurable list, and I've got a go and not go and things like that. I can give a summary to my colleagues. So I could say that I've completed in line with policy here. And then underneath that, I've also got an option to receive further updates. Importantly, I won't have my email besieged by loads of emails, because this is only going to send me one email when the first activity has occurred. That email nicely will contain a link, takes me straight back into the review, tells me there's been activity within it. And then once I've visited the review, what I will do is I'll journey to the filter that I've mentioned before, which is that ability to filter since I was last here, what's happened. Because although I've got one email, there could be hundreds upon hundreds of comments and proposed changes since I last was there. I've got a really nice way of filtering those out and having a look and seeing what I need to. Lots of the times I'll just have it where I've commented on, so I'm precious about the places that I've worked within, and sometimes obviously I've got any paragraph will be useful as well. Clicking OK, that's me out of the review. Importantly, the sort of final aspects of a reviewer is that you also then have access, if you're permitted, to see the final output of the review. So against the reviews that I'm in, I can look to historic ones, for instance. I can filter nicely by completed. I can go to this particular review. I can click select. I can journey to the bottom. To the right-hand side, I have the links to the reconciliation reports and the other versions. So excuse me, hiccups. I've got it with Excel, which is in the middle one. I've got Word, and I've also got the HTML version that I showed you already. I tend personally to use the Excel version. I just really like that that version, because what it allows me to do is really interrogate PleaseReview to that reconciliation report. So I can really see the sort of the finer details of the review. The layout of it is that basically we have a summary screen. This gives me an indication of who was the reviewers and what areas were they from within. But the Word document, in this case, it was a single and solitary document up for a review. I can then easily see, what was the text that was amended? Was there any commentary? Who amended it? I've also got, what was the category? Was that category corrected? What was the author's comment? So what was the feedback that they gave to that particular user? I've also got, any commentary that went on. So someone's made a comment, I can see things like that. So that, as I mentioned, that would be my go-to. If I'm just high level, simple overview, then I'll utilize the Word environment. I think that's really nice for that. And that will open up there. Bottom left, we have then a number of options. In your system, you won't also see this clone as a new review. That's been removed from your system. If it's something that would be useful, it can be added back in. Clone, basically, what it does is it pulls out the finalized version of this particular review and uses it as the starting point for the next review. So that's what it's there for. But for a reviewer, as I am, that's been removed as an option. It's probably not relevant for reviewers to have that as an option. It's probably better cited as it is now, just as the owner of the review. Underneath, though, we do have the ability to download a copy of the review. That download can be in two versions. It can be the original, it can be the final output. Final output for PleaseReview is clean document incorporating all of the changes. Anything that's unaddressed would be shown within that. That filter is configurable, so we can click on select comments. These are the options that are currently being reported on. Anything accepted and open, and that accepted open is tracked and normal text. But if we want to flip it on its head and see everything, we can click all. We can just journey to here and accept as accepted. You'll also note there are also an awful lot of other filters. So for instance, if we wanted to filter by type of comment, category, participant, point in time, we wanted to pick up certain elements. So whether or not, the Word comment, whenever changing the document, produce a clean set of comments, no replies, or status information. You want a particular comment by an author and their initials, comments only, paragraph IDs to be included. All of those options that you see, lots of them, you can select and click OK. You'd have noticed also there's an option to return to defaults as well. So after playing, if you ever want to see what that is, have a look. PleaseReview does remember the settings that you've applied for a particular review. So yeah, if you're ever confused as to the output, as to why you're seeing things, that would be my top tip. Have a look at that. Going back to this download, if I now show it to you, we didn't see it clean. It was just that. It was a clean document. I'm showing you now the word track change version of it. And opening that up as such. Okay, so whilst that waits, for those that are just attending the reviewer element, now it's just opened. So as you can see, all of the good things for you as a reviewer is all there as well. So that is actually everything to show you as a reviewer. Two elements to add to today's session, just looking at the time. Added value to it is that there is two environments that you can review a document outside PleaseReview, so effectively offline. Now, the first is available with a certain browser, and that browser is basically Microsoft Explorer. So if I log in under Microsoft Explorer, I'll have an additional option automatically available within my system. So if I go in as Aidan does help if I spell him correctly, and go in. But if I log in as Aidan, this is the user account that we've been witnessing already, but you'll see to the left-hand side, we've got a new option called flight mode. Now, the way that flight mode works is it's very specifically against Microsoft Explorer, and that is that it will allow a user to actually use the a feature within Microsoft Explorer that allows you to utilize the browser cache as a storage device. And effectively, that allows me then to download any review into my browser cache. The review types are very specific, can only be Word, but when I open it up, what you'll see is a very simplified version of PleaseReview. As you witness, you've got a series of P's and C's that litter through the document, and those P's and C's indicate any comments and any proposed changes. The use of this environment is exactly the same. You basically click on the section. You can see a section. I disagree that online should be one word. I think it should be hyphenated. For instance, I can put in that as my proposed change, click OK, and that will propose that change then to my colleagues. It'll just highlight the section to say, look, I've done this in this offline environment. So it's a very simplified version. It was originally designed for sort of tablet use, so the reason for its sort of simplicity, but could be quite useful, obviously, if you allowed to use it, and also if you want to use it, it's that as an offline environment. There is a secondary offline environment, which is actually an application, and that application can run on your sort of PC. And basically what that application will do is that it will allow you to download any type of documents into it. So it's not limited just to Word. If I open that up so you can see it, so here I've got my reviews, and basically I can just jump into the review, click of the mouse, and the environment that I'll be presented with is basically exactly the same environment that I've been presented to within the browser environment. So there's no difference in it. So for user adoption, really nice and easy. And as I said before, it'll accommodate all document types. Now, really then, once that opens up, really for today, then I can't think of anything really significantly more that I can add to this reviewer user training. I know that for some of you, you've seen it already. Really importantly, does anyone have any questions or any areas that you would like me to revisit? I know that some of you have used PleaseReview. Are there any issues that you've encountered that you'd like a suggestion as to how to sort of rectify or whatever?
So Francis, I know all our users are very well versed with PleaseReview at this point. We've been using it for a while. One question though, and this is an issue which we often run into, is processing documents that are large. Typically around 100 MB, right? Is there right now what we are doing is really compressing it outside the PleaseReview system and then loading it. Is there a good practice or things to do to handle larger files?
Okay, so when you upload larger files, are you utilizing the advanced features on the left-hand side and utilizing the first option, which is this one? And basically what it does is it just extends the timeout option for uploading those documents into PleaseReview. It just gives it a little bit extra time. Do you use that currently?
We are not. Let me ask my team here. Is anybody using this option?
No.
Okay.
I'm not either.
Okay, so sometimes so the way that really PleaseReview works is that it's uploading from your PC into the sort of browser environment. With that, if you're on a slow connection, that sometimes can have an impact. If by the sounds of it, that's really not the case. They're just just basically large documents. So what I would call upon is this option. And basically, if you were to select it, that will, for the vast majority of larger documents, just give you that extra bit of extension that PleaseReview accommodates for that document. If, however, you're still witnessing it and you're on a good connection speed and it's still sort of, tripping out basically, what you can do is you can report that to our support desk. And what our support desk can do is that there is a timeout option within the PleaseReview system, and they can basically extend that timeout. So the document timeout is detailed here as a system administrator. And what they can do is they can provide you with the an extended time to put in within that. They can give you advice as well as to which setting to apply. So although I can show it to you and I can say, look, that's where it is, I can't give you the figure that you would extend it to. This depends on the sort of your sort of hosting circumstance, and they would look into that for you. So yeah, that's the second option as well, if the first doesn't work.
Sounds good.
Any other issues that you've faced with PleaseReview? Have you ever noticed that PleaseReview sort of tweaks certain documents so that when you upload them into PleaseReview, they look a little differently in the PleaseReview system?
I haven't, because I do not really deal with the review of the document itself.
I think our excuse me, our team has an expectation that things are going to always look a little different. In other words, what I've heard, parenthetically, since I'm not really a reviewer myself, is that they don't trust that the formatting will remain stable once it's rendered.
Yeah, so basically, PleaseReview, as you're saying, is re-rendering the document, and there are certain interactions that are affected by PleaseReview. So to sort of detail that, I'll just open up a document. I did have it as a review, but I seem to have moved it into another area. So basically, with PleaseReview, sometimes where you have a document where, for instance, there's a table, and if that table has been constructed by someone who's just sort of tabbing across the word cell, what will basically happen is PleaseReview, when it sees it, will basically bring it back together. It won't see that you've set that table up as tabbing it. So it's not really a true table that's been utilized. It's just basically someone tabbing across the screen. So it does bring it back and condenses it. But importantly, as soon as you take it back out of PleaseReview, it sends it straight back into Word and it reconstructs itself. There's nothing that PleaseReview ever does to a document that messes up its original format. It just is that sort of visualization. The tabbing can easily be corrected, because better practice is actually construct a table. If you don't want to see the borders, then you would just use one with out borders. Whilst I'm talking, I can't for the life of me find my little demonstration document, which is annoying to show you this, but hopefully just talking about it is enough. Sometimes what you'll find where you have a document that has a sort of like almost a cover sheet document, and you have that sort of big element of bold color that's against it. If you utilize those sort of things in your templates, sometimes you'll see that they almost shimmer across the top of the screen and they sort of move. Unfortunately, there's nothing you can do within PleaseReview to correct that. That's just PleaseReview, and it will correct itself when it sits back in Word. Another thing that you'll sometimes notice is text actually just wrapping itself around a table. just better construction of your document would resolve that. Sometimes you'll see if you put a lot of images into a document that those images will move, and if you ever encounter that, then what you can do is group your images in the Word document when you're constructing it, and that will resolve that. So there are quite a few ways of being able to sort of address these things, because I know that, you know, as a user, it can be really annoying and also be sort of you know, disconcerting that, you know, they're off a bit. We do have within PleaseReview a constant update of the system. One of the things that is being currently updated is actually how PleaseReview is coded and how it works behind the scenes. So we hope that with sort of more modern coding, and it's very recent anyway, but with more modern coding, that there is, you know, further upgrades to, you know, its use and its visualizations. So they can be really sort of useful. We do have also we have a main help file for all of our products, and there's also some interesting articles that you can find within this. So for instance, we then talk about, you know, how within this you can correct, there it is, formatting guidance. So all of the things that I've been talking about are detailed here. So it details how data alignment, positioning of images, formatting, cropping images, all of the things that sort of trip up PleaseReview, how they can easily be sort of resolved, and really when they can't be resolved, that's also then highlighted within that. So I think that might be a sort of a good article to read for those things as well. Any other sort of questions, any other sort of annoyances that you found? I'll put this article in the chat as well so that people have easy sites for it, so you don't have to hunt around for it as well. But as I said, any other aspects?
Not for me.
Okay. Great. Well, I really hope that this has been a valuable use of your time. For those that have, you know, witnessed this, I hope that you've just picked up something with it. I really, you know, hope you enjoy using PleaseReview. Please remember that, you know, if you do have problems with it, don't hesitate but to reach out to our support desk. You know, don't go suffer in silence, I would suggest, because as I said, you know, those little fixes for timeout issues, if that little option doesn't work, you know, there are other things that can do behind the scenes. And they can also tweak system settings even for PDFs. So it's PDFs, for instance, that trip up your systems. There's other settings that can be applied for that. So there's lots of solutions to these sort of little annoyances there.
Right.
But yeah, but hopefully that's everything covered. And yeah, I thank you. And if no further questions, I bid you good day.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Bye-bye for now.